702.
Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
24 minutes to 11 o'clock. Clement is not here. In his stead, I'm Thabo Shole-Mashao. We're together till 12. I'm excited to be with you. And I love the level of engagement, by the way. We have to differ. We have to see things differently. That's what makes a debate so rich. And please don't hold back. Keep firing those shots. I'm enjoying them thoroughly. And I mean it when I say that. That's the nature of a great debate. We have to thresh out issues. We won't see things in the very same way. It's impossible. So your views are most welcome. Mine, I'd like to believe, are also accommodated in your plethora of views and in your platform of wisdom. And let's continue doing that. 011-883-0702. 011-883-0702. I'm excited to be with you. Keep those calls coming through. 80 years ago on this day, British troops marched into Poland to bring some bit of liberation. You remember, this is the post-World War II. And they found gruesome scenes of people lying around, dead bodies. You'd remember the story of gas chambers, children, women, and men, and the Auschwitz anniversary. And we are looking at that right now, and assisting us with that as we page back the pages in the book of history. We are joined by Mary Kluk, director of the Durban Holocaust and Genocide and national vice president of the Jewish Board of Deputies. Mary, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
What's the significance of this day? And I'm saying that not lightly. I'm saying that on the backdrop of knowing that there are other people who may not necessarily have sufficient information of the day, there's its significance in historicity, but most importantly, its significance in the lives of those who were directly affected.
Thank you. So just in terms of the physical date, I just want to draw your listeners' attention to the 27th of January is the significant date for the liberation of Auschwitz. Auschwitz was an enormous infrastructure of multiple concentration and death camps where over a million people were murdered, most of whom were Jewish. And on the 27th of January, 1945, the Russian army liberated the camp, which was one of the first camps to be liberated in the sort of final lead up to the end of the war, Second World War. But this year, 2025, was the 80th anniversary of that significant day. And so there was a commemoration on that day, and I can share a little bit about that because I did travel to Auschwitz for the commemoration. But the reason we're talking today is that this past few days has been what the Jewish community call Yom HaShoah, which is the day of the Shoah, the day of commemorating the Holocaust. Shoah is a Hebrew word for catastrophe, and it's the day where we commemorate this, not just Auschwitz, but the entire process of the attempt by the Nazis to eliminate the Jewish community of Europe. 6 million Jews were murdered in that process. And the commemoration day is very significant because for the survivors, and interestingly today, there are still just over 200,000 survivors alive. Many of them, you can imagine, in an advanced age. In fact, 1,400 of whom are over 100. But for all those people who did survive in 1945, this day of Yom HaShoah is the day of remembrance. They have no idea where, for most people, where or on what day their family members were murdered. Many of them are in piles of ashes in mass graves. And so for them, for people who have no cemetery, for all of us, if you think about a loss of a loved one. We have an annual commemoration. We have a day in a year where I remember the loss of, the death of my parents, where they are buried, maybe a journey to the cemetery to pay your respects. For Holocaust survivors, there is no such opportunity. So the day of commemoration, Yom HaShoah, where we commemorate the loss of the 6 million Jews who were murdered, but also the resilience of those survivors. And for the survivors, it's an incredibly significant day. So that's why we're talking today. And just to mention that the Auschwitz was one of the first camps to be liberated.
Certainly.
On the 27th of January. I hope that was clear.
No, it's very clear. And one, again, we refer to incidents in history sometimes with a little element of vagueness. Hence, I ask for the significance and the importance thereof. Why do you feel that generations moving on should be cognizant and should stop and pause for a second to reflect on this?
So thank you for that question, because that's what I think the world, certainly the world in my world of Holocaust education and Jewish leadership, is an enormous moment for us all to ponder what will be when all Holocaust survivors are no longer. So first-hand witnesses, so to speak. We have, since 1945, although initially it was very difficult for survivors to talk, but to this day, I was just, as I said to you, at Auschwitz on the 27th of January, and 40 survivors of that camp were able to make the journey to be there to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the camp. But the projections are that in the next 5 to 10 years, 70% of the survivors who are alive at the moment will no longer be alive. So within 10 years, we're looking at a significantly reduced population of Holocaust survivors, first-hand witnesses. And how will we remember if we don't have people around the table or opportunities to hear from first-hand witnesses? As you so rightly said, how do we avoid these significant, tragic events that shaped our lives and our future being sort of confined to the shelves of history?
Yeah.
And so the intention is, and there are some really clever, is with AI, I don't have to tell you, tech's not my forte, but I've been exposed to some really incredible technological advancements that are actually creating the opportunity for young people to engage with Holocaust survivors through a hologram. Honestly, the opportunities for, we have student groups and school groups who come through our Holocaust survivor, Holocaust centers in Durban, Cape Town, and Johannesburg every day. And they have the opportunity to engage with, through a screen, and ask questions of Holocaust survivors as if they were there through this hologram process. So it's not the same, but we are, there is an enormous amount of huge endeavor to bring those stories to life and to create those testimonies so that they are as full and as meaningful as they can be for future generations. I think your question was why, and why do I think it's significant for young people? We need to learn from history, and especially if I think about the tradition, particularly and this is a history for everybody, but coming from a particularly Jewish perspective, we just celebrated the festival of Passover. So I'm sure most of your listeners know about the Passover, which in the Christian tradition, the Passover is perceived as the last night of the Passover is perceived as the Last Supper. But for the Jewish people, Passover is the time where the Jews commemorate and celebrate the exodus from Egypt, from slavery, and the liberation of the Jewish people. And every year we commemorate that, and we are instructed to share it with our children and grandchildren as if they were there. And I think that what for me is important is that it's really important for future generations to commemorate what our ancestors, in their case, the future generations, in my case, my late mother and grandparents experienced, because that is our collective memory.
Sure.
That is what shapes our identity.
Mary,
as people, as humanity.
Yeah, you recently went to revisit Auschwitz, and you were there. I'm interested in your contemporary thoughts, especially after traversing those very significant spaces of history. What do you bring with us? What is going? What sort of passages does it open in your memory bank, and how does it? I'm sure it was emotional as well.
It is very emotional. You don't know if it's going to be. You prepare yourself for a visit such as that as much as one can, in terms of providing yourself with information and layers of possible reactions. You have no idea. I think for me personally, the scale of what is physically remains there, the scale of what was achieved, if that's the right word. Achievement has sort of positive connotations, but what the Nazis were able to accomplish, if you could imagine literally thousands of people being brought in the most horrific circumstances in cattle trucks to their death, and a factory of death. And certainly one can't conceive of it today, never mind that we've been aware of it for 80 years. And how, as you said, when the liberators and the liberating armies came across these concentration camps and death camps, how much the mind must have boggled at what humanity is capable of. And I think that's the lesson for all of us, or the warning for all of us. We all are capable of enormous good, but we all have, I personally believe, a propensity for really unfathomable evil, it would seem. Not all of us, but to see the depravity that humanity would descend to. And I think coming from South Africa and having lived all my life here and feeling so passionate about my own country, and I think about how important it is that we continue to work hard every day to build the country we dream of, and to reach out to each other as human beings. I think there are lessons and messages for all of us, no matter what your personal circumstances are, what religion you are and where you come from. Going to a place like Auschwitz triggers in all of us the opportunity to think about what we don't want to be.
I was reading somewhere just yesterday in preparation of this, and I can't remember where, but they were mentioning that also the pain came post the war, post the freeing of Auschwitz, wherein you had some victims who were alive at the time, and many of them died after they were liberated because of the diet that they were receiving, and their bodies were not used to basic food, given the atrocities that they had endured for quite some time. And many of them could not cope, even post-liberation, with the freedom that came with it. And it just told a very sad story that it didn't actually end on the day, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You said it so perfectly. Apart from people being, in order to return to life, the process, I don't think we had there wasn't the dietary sophistication or the understanding of nutrition that there is today. And the refeeding that one needs to take people who are literally emaciated and starving and literally bones back to life. People were starving and overate and caused their stomachs to to ultimately, be their demise, such frail and fragile human beings that they were. But then there was also the emotional aspect of trying to return to life. We often refer in Holocaust education as the pain of survival rather than liberation. You imagine people coming back to their hometown to absolutely nobody. Not one person, coming from enormous families, large, enormous, beautiful families, coming home, not one single soul you love is there to be with you. I mean, those are the pain of survival was extraordinary.
Also, again, going through some literature on this, and it thinks that you would easily know. It said that there were more than 3 million of Poland's 3.2 million Jews who were murdered by the Nazis, accounting for about half of the Jews in Europe killed during the Holocaust. How critical?
Yes.
How critical is it to name the culprit by their name in order not to revisit what took place in the past? How important is it not to sweep it under the carpet, but to say this was a transgressor and this was a victim?
I think it's becoming more and more important. It's so interesting because the questions you raise are really important. We have focused, and for obvious reasons, enormous amounts of energy and time on the victims.
Sure.
And obviously survivors.
Rightly so.
But exactly. But more and more so, the opportunity now and the importance of making sure that the perpetrators are front and center for exactly the reasons that you and the points that you raise. I think in order for us to build a world where where this kind of hatred and othering and we all know it's cliched to say it didn't begin with gas chambers. Auschwitz was a step-by-step process, and it starts with how we speak to one another every single day. The choices we make on how we choose to engage with our fellow man. And I think those are the lessons and those are the opportunities that we in our 3 Holocaust centers, as I said, in Durban, Cape Town, and Johannesburg, have the privilege to help young people to understand the choices that they have in how they choose to engage with their fellow human beings.
And Mary, now looking at probably the education system, curriculum, the place of Auschwitz, Holocaust in history, what do you think about the level of prevalence as far as text is concerned? Is it sufficient? Could more be done? And I know when matters of such sentimental value are touched on, it can't just be enough. There also information keeps coming, new information keeps coming forth. How would you characterize the quality of the text as far as history is concerned on these significant issues?
So we're living in an interesting time because as intimidating as technology is, it's also providing us with amazing opportunities to ensure that these texts, literature, etc., the testimonies, historians' work is being saved for posterity. And so I think the challenge now is to make sure that young people are accessing, you and I understand that young people access most of the information that they imbibe through social media. And the challenge is now to make sure that is responsible information and accurate, historically accurate information is made available to them. So it's, the challenge is more, how do we take the information we have and make sure that it's not distorted? And we're living in a weird kind of world where truth is quite murky, as hard as that is for us to comprehend. And I think that's the challenge. How do young people access, as you say, more and more information and more of these artifacts and are being made available, and archives are being opened up.
Yeah.
As you know, the Vatican opened their archive of that period very recently. So all of that information is, thank God, being made available to historians and researchers. But now we have to make sure that the young people who choose to and are accessing most of their information through what can be very problematic source needs to be available in a responsible way. And there's a great deal of effort and energy being put into AI to ensure that the information is historically sound.
And how do people reach your institution as we come to the tail end of this discussion? And does the institution perhaps have some interesting things in your calendar in the future?
Oh, definitely. Thank you for that question. So I'm the director of the Durban Holocaust and Genocide Center, and we are based on the North Beach in Durban. We have a beautiful center with a very meaningful and impactful permanent exhibition, as does our sister centers in Johannesburg and Cape Town. All three there, the Cape Town Holocaust and Genocide Center, as well as Johannesburg Holocaust and Genocide Center. Each of our centers offer opportunities to immerse yourself in an exhibition, but we also have many public events. So wherever you are based in South Africa, please go onto our website, go on to social media, and familiarize yourselves with what's coming up. We have public events weekly almost. And we look forward to welcoming your listeners to our centers.
Certainly. Thanks for your time, Mary Kluk, Director of the Durban Holocaust and Genocide Center, and also the National Vice President of the Jewish Board of Deputies. 2 minutes to 11.